P Corp today, the producer of Controlling 2014 for today's webinar. My name is Alice Adams, and I'll be moderating today along with my colleague John Reed. Today's topic is on SAP Simple Finance, presented by Karsten Hilker from SAP. And before I turn things over to Karsten, we'll go through a few housekeeping notes and information about the webinar. First of all, we encourage you to post questions as they come up. If there are really any urgent questions, we may decide to address those during the webinar. Otherwise, we plan to hold questions until the end, but let's go ahead and get a good pipeline of questions going. If you're having any kind of technical difficulties, please send a message either to myself or John Reed, and we'll do our best to help you. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to Karsten.
Thank you very much. All right, let's get started. We're going to talk today about our, latest next-generation SAP finance solution. There were big announcements, large announcements during Sapphire when the product was first introduced. So today we're going to look at a quick overview on what Simple Finance is, what SAP Accounting Powered by HANA is, the central journal scenario, because that's probably the most desired one and applicable one to most of your customers. And as part of that, we're going to look at the simplifications that can be achieved, innovations that are included, talk about the components, the prerequisites, and the deployment options. Throughout the seminar today, you'll hopefully get a lot of additional pointers. You can ask some questions. Of course, you can always follow up with the Controlling 2014 team or me, myself, via email. We'll also talk about some of these additional events that are there where you can talk with us about this in more detail, but also with your peers about it. So let's jump in. First, from a what are we trying to achieve with this new solution perspective? What we want to do is we want to create an organization that can be aligned. You as a customer will be able to work with one single source of truth. And as such, what we're having in mind is provide a one-stop access to all financial and non-financial data that's harmonized, that doesn't require reconciliation, there is no redundancy anymore, and provides you with all the flexibility for data drill down so you have the information that you need to make decisions and not be limited by any kind of previous architectural decisions that were made on the SAP side maybe, or limitations that were available on the technology side, like on the database side. So let's look at first how HANA can enable a single source of truth, right? In the past we had, or we still have today, ERP systems where you post all your transactions in. You have your MM module, your PP module, SD module, you enter sales orders, you procure stuff, you pay stuff, you have your financial transactions in there. Eventually, this data was extracted into a parallel data store. Let's call it a BW system. And there, basically, you had some acceleration. And maybe we had those BW accelerators where you can bring additional reporting performance in. And today, we are in a world where basically HANA can be as the database that has all of this information in it. You transact and you post those transactions, those records of your transactions into the database itself. You point your analysis tools, your Fiori, your BW, BI against the same data set. And you can also today with Simple Finance now use planning capabilities that go directly against this data so you have real-time data and you can adjust in an agile way your planning or your business activities or priorities towards existing data sets during the month, not at month end. So you have one shared data model eventually, that's where we're going to, one single set. You aggregate on the fly. You no longer have to basically determine different data sets or subsets of data because reporting constraints of the past or architectural constraints are past. So there. So that one single source of truth I think is really important. That's where we're getting to. Many aspects are already available. And on the way there with Simple Finance today, there's two key architectural changes that are available with the SAP Accounting Powered by SAP HANA aspect. So imagine on the top we see logistics documents coming in from the side. Eventually they created FI and CO documents, and that's still the case and will remain the case. But then for ease of use or for performance perspective, there were a lot of total tables, indices tables, and so on. And that actually, had some kind of impact on throughput. It also had sometimes an impact on the ability to post transactions. So they were concurring logistics transactions, and they basically blocked each other in that sense. But also in those total tables, you didn't have all the dimensionality of your source transactions. right? So they kind of created a filter for you what you could use for your analysis. And now we're going to do away with these total tables, indices tables. Means we don't have to post them anymore, which should improve the throughput. We have access directly to the line item now for analysis, which means we're not filtering the amount of dimensionality that you have. You have all the dimensions available that are in these source transactions. So from a change management perspective, once you put that solution in place, you will have better information, but you will also see where you are missing data. And that's where you then can go back to the source systems, to the source transactions, to people entering transactions and say, well, here, now we can use this information. I need you to capture this information. Or maybe adjust your interfaces to provide more information as much as you can, because now you can analyze that. So we are going away with these total tables and indices tables. If you have existing programs that are in place that use this, we have replaced them with logical views so that there's no loss of functionality in that sense. The second part is on the bottom, you see on the left side, FI and CO grow together logically. So what does that mean? It means that whenever there's an FI posting and a CO posting, we can bring them together. We can eliminate reconciliation efforts that would have had to take place between FI and CO. And ultimately, imagine this scenario. You call up a balance sheet report or P&L in FI, and typically you have your company code, maybe you have your profit center, maybe you have your business area. And that's it from a business segment reporting perspective. If you wanted to see the revenue broken down by product, by customer, by region, by channel, if you wanted to have seen work in process broken down by material, production orders, batch runs or something like this, if you wanted to have detail for your variance analysis or for your purchase price variances, for example, you would have had to go into different kinds of sub-reports, either in CO, inventory management, MM, or so on. By us now bringing this information together, you are being put in a position to say, I'll start my balance sheet, I look at revenue, I look at company code, I go to profit center, I go to product, channel, customer, and so on. So we're bringing this together so that from an analysis perspective, we have one big data set that allows you end-to-end analysis and not force you to jump between different places. And because it's together, it's also reconciled, so it saves you a lot of reconciliation effort that people in the past had to go through. So from a reporting architecture, we still have those physical documents, FI and CO, COPA, master data, like in the past. We're bringing them together now, as I said, through these logical documents. And what has changed a little bit is that now through HANA Live, which is part of HANA, we have a layer in here which creates virtual data models. So we don't have to copy, like in a BW system, physically these data and create new joins and new data sets in that sense necessarily, but we can use these logical views now, and we can use them internally already through WebDynpros or Fiori apps, or even they can be accessed to business.Objects BI. So the point is now that if I have reporting in place that I want for finance or controlling, I can basically go against these physical data sources right away. I go against them in real time and on the lowest level, on the line item level. Now, does this replace your BW system? It does not. But maybe portions of what you have today in BW can either move into this world and take advantage of real-time information line item level, where you have aggregations on the fly, or maybe you keep those report delivery mechanisms in place, like BEX or something, and under the hood, just change the data provision. So there doesn't have to be any impact to the end users. You could just under the hood change how you get the data, and instead of extracting it, maintaining these extracts and duplicating data, you could just go against the real-time data right away. Here's some examples, right? So there is a financial statement for via Fiori, which is a very different user experience than our SAP GUI. And here, reporting with business.Objects BI tools. Now, in the past, you had to eventually bring data into a universe to be able to use these tools. And many of these tools already can directly access data that sits on HANA through means of the virtual data model or other mechanisms. One real cool thing here, too, is you see business-Objects analysis as a tool here. Basically, it is Excel, but you have another ribbon in here that says analysis. And basically, on the left side, you see open data set. So now you could use Excel as your front end. You can say, show me a cost center data set. On the right side, you can have all those dimensions. You say what should be in a row, what should be in a column, what should be the filter. And you can go with Excel real-time against your finance data. So that's one of the benefits of this new architecture and access capability to data that sits on HANA. An example here, harmonized internal and external reporting is work in process, right? In the past, we had GL account, and that was about it. From the same report now, we can say, show me the GL account, show me the production order, show me the different materials, different amounts, different cost elements. So you can drill down directly into the lowest dimension available to help you explain why a balance is a particular balance. I talked about the reconciliation effort. Obviously, some of these reconciliation areas will go away, and others will be dramatically simplified, of course, right? That translates into kind of how much time you spend on non-value added work, how much the cost is for these kind of activities, how much the holdup is, because effectively, before you haven't reconciled it, you don't trust the data, you will not use it. Now, doing away with these total tables, bringing documents together, eventually even creating physical document, using HANA data compression, and so on, will dramatically reduce your footprint. Now, it will be different for every customer, but factors of 10, 20, 30 are not unusual for this kind of stuff. So when you are considering to go onto HANA, or you already have, the data footprint itself, how big a system has to be or the HANA database has to be, is significantly less than for a typical hard disk-based system. So we move from aligned to agile now. So what we're trying to achieve now, what we can do with this new solution capabilities, is we move towards real-time execution, towards instant insight for everyone that needs to have information, and obviously to a more comprehensive process oversight and risk management, because you have data information at your hands right away. So from a real-time process revolution, right, we have real-time reporting, which means we don't run these reports based on data that gets extracted, where we have data latency, where maybe once a day, once a week, certain data is brought over into a BW system, made available to you. We're moving towards personal analytics. That means every end user can just go and grab the data he needs, work with it the way he wants, and the data is always the latest and greatest. So often in scenarios where you have to adjust issues, right, you see an issue, you make the posting, you check immediately thereafter if the issue is resolved. And so you can basically finish your job right away, not tomorrow when the data gets replicated and you can check that it was done. Part of this real-time revolution also is kind of the little block call out, no more batch, right? I mean, there will always be batch processes because it's easier to schedule certain jobs and have them run on a more regular basis. But if you really look at why batch jobs exist, these are processes that need to be kicked off, and typically not during the regular business hours, right? So we don't have to schedule jobs to run overnight because they're long-running. We can't have them happen during the business hours anymore. By these processes running faster, they can run at any time, which also means they can run more often. Example, material ledger, right, versus running it once a month to figure out what the actual material cost is. Now this could run in minutes or maybe in an hour or two, and you can run it every day, right? You can run it in the morning when you come in. You can kick it off. If you want to schedule it from an automation perspective, you can still do so. But seriously, using batch jobs is more about automation these days and not about basically managing the business hours of your business and your people. Move to the left side. We can obviously accelerate bottleneck steps. But it's also about continuous execution. So now if you look at the financial close, for example, typically we look at an entire period, it's done, and then we say day 1, day 2, day 3 of closing, which are the first days in the new calendar. If you're not limited by batch process anymore, if you can do real-time things during the month, then basically day 1 of your closing becomes the first day of that period. You will never execute all consolidation steps or closing steps every day, but certain portions you can execute during the month whenever you want to get the data that you need. For example, to have, after the end of week 1, an idea where your P&L is going is far better because you have 3 weeks to react, adjust priorities, make some calls, say we have to catch up here, do more things there, drop this activity, to help you get to your plan numbers by month, and then finding out 3 days after the close that you really had a bad month. So no one wants to be surprised. No one wants to be restating. So we can do many, many more processes during the month, and many of these closing activities will become part of your daily process execution. Here's an example where you see basically financial close and transition to continuous processing. At the month end, typically you had them all lined up. They were long-running batch jobs. They had to be scheduled. Now many of these you might just do on demand, ad hoc, or on a daily basis. An example where the HANA database and access to different tables and being able to analyze them quickly helps here is intercompany reconciliation. Instead of running independent steps that would be about selecting documents, assigning documents, and reconciling them, the system can just help doing this almost like on the fly. So there are certain aspects of the solution that help you basically close your books faster. Talk about user experience. That's part of Simple Finance as well. So Fiori or the small business cockpits play a larger part in that. Just from a categorization perspective, when we look at Fiori or the types of Fiori applications, at the beginning when it came out, it was just those little Fiori apps that we saw. Right now, basically, we have task-based transactional applications, and eventually we will have journal entries, also happening via Fiori here. We have on the right side certain fact sheets which bring data together. And I think the difference here between traditional transactions or reports is that these fact sheets often can go cross-application boundary. Look at working capital, where you have to, for example, bring together data from cash, from payables and receivables, right? And you have really built out mini applications, in that sense, smart business cockpits that are purpose-built and predefined. So in this case, we have something for cash management, for the financial closing cockpit. I think working capital is going to be in that category as well. So more and more of this will move away from a SAP GUI to a Fiori interface, to an HTML5 interface that you can run anytime and anywhere, because these user interfaces can run on your mobile devices as well as they can on a desktop. So here's examples of Fiori, collections work list, process receivables, the cockpits I mentioned already, for close manager, receivables manager, and smart business for financial close example here, where we have a cockpit that helps us understand how we achieved milestones, how we're progressing, where we have issues. Very different way information is rendered and can be used for people. Cash management as well. So now migration, SAP Accounting powered by HANA, financials add-on. So let's talk about the different names that you heard. So internal project names range from Smart Finance to Simple Finance to SFin and so on. And with the official kind of release of that functionality at Sapphire, there's now different names for different things. For me, as a practitioner, if you put this all on the umbrella Simple Finance, latest, greatest, next generation financial solution capability, I think that's fine for a casual conversation and is easy to understand for everyone. So let's look at what we have as Simple Finance. It's not an official product name. You can deploy Simple Finance capabilities either on the cloud or you can deploy it on-premise. If you install it on-premise, then you basically have a standard ERP system. You have to upgrade to EHP 7, so that's no different than what you have today. And then you would install the Financials add-on. Now there's a couple of add-ons. There's one for accounting, one for cash management, one for integrated business planning. The one that we have available right now is called SAP Accounting Powered by HANA. So in addition to EHP 7, you would implement the SAP Accounting Powered by HANA, which brings many of these architectural changes that we just reviewed with it. Right? So if you're a regular ERP customer, you want to use the latest, greatest Simple Finance capabilities, you would basically install the financial add-on SAP Accounting Powered by HANA. Once the cash management add-on becomes available, you obviously can choose to implement that too. Same thing with integrated business planning. If you are in the cloud world, then SAP Simple Finance is basically a brand name, a product name for all the finance value map capabilities that we have that run in the cloud. That includes eventually an ERP system with EHP 7 and the financial add-ons, but it could also include capabilities beyond, like in risk management or fraud management. So from a product perspective, look at it this way. You have the cloud version, SAP Simple Finance, and we have the on-premise capabilities, and there basically we have our existing suite on HANA system, ERP system with different add-ons, and accounting powered by HANA is the foundation for many of these and brings us to where we are today from a solution capability perspective. That also means the prerequisite is here for an on-premise. You need to be on EHP 7, and then you need to implement the add-on. Obviously, in the cloud, it's a moot point because you can be on any release that you want to. Typically, you would start with the latest. Let's quickly talk about the third aspect. We talked about aligned. We talked about agile, and now we talk about predictive and dynamic. And with that, basically, let's quickly look at planning and consolidation. Many of our customers use BPC, use planning capabilities, and in the past they were BW-based. Right? You had your info cubes as the data store for your planning models, and then eventually you had the capability to run BW on HANA, which means those data sets would sit on HANA, would improve performance, and some calculation capabilities will move into HANA now as well. Now with Simple Finance on the ERP side, having data in HANA as well, you are able now going forward to basically look at integrated business planning, which means you have your HANA platform, ERP transacts against it, which means you have all your actuals in here, and for wherever you do plan data entry, you can have this here as well. But you can use that information, as I said at the beginning, also for BW, BI reporting purposes, but also for BPC purposes. So as an example, to be able to basically act dynamically towards changed business situation, you would find out you have a revenue shortfall, you have an operating expense overrun. You will see that directly in actuals. You pull that actual data set up in BPC, and you can do replan right away. You don't need to extract any kind of data into a different system before you start your planning. And you can enable reporting that shows you always a combined view of actuals in SAP ERP and basically plan data that you develop with the integrated planning capability. Now this capability is based on partially BPC, and it's forthcoming. If you want to look at a built-out scenario already that is available right now as part of SAP Accounting powered by HANA, you have here an integrated financial planning solution in that sense that allows you to plan for cost centers, orders, projects, and P&L. So basically now the planning that in ERP would sit in cost center accounting, internal orders, and COPA, you could do now here directly with a Excel-based user interface. People used, so our developers used business object analysis for this that we saw earlier already. And bottom line is, for example, if you enter data in that scenario on a cost center level, it's obviously also kind of indirect cost. You will see that data directly on the same level in your P&L financial plan here. So that's something that's available today as well. Let's talk quickly about adoption of these new capabilities. Here, the new financial architecture comes. I have no total tables, line item-based access, no reconciliation, and so on. And then how would customers typically deploy that? So if you look at customers with with one system, they would obviously just upgrade their existing system, right? They upgrade to HP 7, put the finance add-ons in place that they want, and they're done. Now, many customers have, for example, an existing system that's heavily customized or maybe out of maintenance. And they can't really upgrade very easily. So they wouldn't be able to take advantage out of these capabilities. So for them, you could stand up basically a separate system, a separate instance. And there's different options here, right? In the past, they might have done this and just say, I use a BW system, right? If you use a BW system, you can only achieve reporting, which might have been good enough. But not you cannot use it for business transactions, user interface changes, upgrades, and those kind of things. If you're a customer that has several systems, you could have used the same approach to consolidate data. But again, it's limited to just reporting. So customers with one existing system, heavily customized, out of maintenance, or customers with several ERP systems, doesn't matter if it's SAP or not, could be Oracle, could be JD Edwards, could be any release. They could have chosen a BAW report to help them with their business pain points. They could have chosen a consolidation ledger in the meaning that something like Hyperion is being fed on a batch level with aggregated data over time, and all of these things just enable reporting and consolidation. What you have now as a capability is to say, hey, I'll stand up a separate system if I cannot upgrade my existing system, or if I have a need for consolidation or centralized processing here, I'll take the separate instance, right, which would be now a instance, as I said, Suite on HANA, EHP 7. You can use the simple finance capabilities of SAP Accounting by HANA, powered by HANA here, and then it gives you basically modern financial reporting, modern management accounting. You could have some consolidated reporting in here. You can use this for process optimization. You get the line item data level access. You get the tables removed. You get faster transactions, new UIs. You get all of this, and in a non-disruptive way, right? So looking at Simple Finance is, in one side, maybe something that you look at from a, let me upgrade my existing system, but it's also an ability to stand up a separate instance that says, I don't want to touch these existing systems. I stand this up as a separate instance. I feed it. It's always real-time. It's always reconciled. It doesn't matter if it's SAP or Oracle, JD Edwards, or what release it is. I have this data set now here. And because I have my data sitting in HANA, as we just saw, integrated business planning allows me to also use this not only for transaction processing, but for planning, maybe for some aspects of consolidation, and of course for reporting, as we said already. Natively through Fiori apps that we just saw, through the Excel business object analysis provided solution, feeding it to BW. So now you have a complete set of capabilities here enabled by this stack that's based on Simple Finance. Now, can you just use a regular ERP system? Yes, you can. The more you take away from the system, the less you have basically the capabilities on this side, as we saw before. You also could say, well, can I just upgrade my existing, if I have more than one system here? If I want to upgrade one of my systems and make that the system, that I consolidate all the data, and you can make that happen as well. So if you're concerned that your IT infrastructure might get more complex rather than simple, you don't have to make this a separate instance. You can implement this instance here on top of basically one of the existing systems. Has some consequences and maybe will hold you back. So if you're looking for a fast time to value, and you can even consider the cloud to stand this up as a separate system, replicate specific finance transactions over here to start using them, it is a great option, but you don't have to go separate. You can upgrade an existing system here. Also, we talked about finance throughout this presentation today, and we're using here ERP data. So for this approach, we're talking about finance data only, not logistics data. Now, which processes benefit a lot from the central journal approach that we outlined here? If you have more than one system, and most of our customers actually do, there's a couple that benefit more. Everything around financial accounting, management accounting, financial close, planning, budgeting, profitability, and consolidations, but also cash management, working capital management. Maybe on the receivable side, we're looking at collections on disputes maybe. Obviously, all of this could help establishing or better running a shared services framework as well. If you stand up such a central journal approach, and in that sense, central journal is nothing more than a concept and approach. It's not a separate product. It's just using your simple financial capabilities in a specific context. You would probably look at the maturity timeline or maturity level rollout. You would probably start with the financial reporting, management reporting first, maybe at some intercompany, some financial close, some collections and dispute. Look at this as a menu that's available to you. If you say, I only want to have consolidated financial reporting, that is fine. If you say, I want to take advantage of more these processes because now I have all the data in one central system, that's your choice. And you can also determine the sequence of rollout based on your pain points or specific needs. Having said that, if you implement a central journal, especially in a separate instance scenario, obviously you don't need to do a big bang ERP scenario. So using the latest capabilities or bringing them to your organization is not about planning yet another big bang 9 to 18 months implementation. It's something that can be done in 3-month increments, right? So to stand this up, especially when you can go cloud, you could start tomorrow morning because you have the system. You could start populating the master data, the system set up, you replicate the data in, and maybe after a month or 2 or 3, you're ready to start using the system in a productive environment. As such, also, especially if you're able to use this kind of scenario here, it's all about a continuous rollout of new capabilities and functionality. And if you want to do any kind of pilot, you would not build anything that's a throwaway proof of concept anymore. You would say, let me stand this up. Let me use my production data. If you look at it and you like it, you turn it active. So there's no throwaway if you pilot the adoption of Simple Finance anymore. So talk quickly about where you can find out more besides this webinar and reaching out to the Controlling 2014 team and myself here. There is a customer engagement initiative established right now on the Simple Finance Central Journal topic. If you're interested in it, send me an email. It does not cost anything to participate. We have bi-weekly calls. We bring together the people from the different organizations, provide a network for them to establish communication between them, among them, but also to define best practices, how to best use such a system, what maybe company-specific challenges are, and what ideas are on how to overcome them, and eventually also go back to development and say, hey, here's a couple of additional things you would like to see in that solution. So if that's something that you want to participate in, send me an email. And then if you look at the upcoming events, especially for controlling professionals here, of course we have our Controlling 2014 event, September 21 to 24 in San Diego, and the link here is there to sign up. We also have a Financial Excellence Forum in October, 7-8 in Newtown Square, that's close to Philadelphia. We also have a link here to find out more about the information. I think these events are very complementary. You know, one is run by 2014, Controlling 2014, and there will be lots of practitioners and sessions led by customers on that subject. The Financial Excellence Forum offers more SAP-guided, like introduction into what we have available, and kind of complements what already will be discussed at the Controlling 2014 event. Typically, we have plenty of people that attend both, and sometimes it's maybe just a regional preference regarding travel when people choose where they want to go. With that, a lot of information. I'll hand it over to you and the Controlling 2014 team for some questions that are already there or are in the chat.
Great. Thank you very much, Carsten. So we do have some questions in the queue, and for those of you who have been waiting to submit questions, I encourage you to go ahead and submit those now. So our first question is from Thuan, and he's wondering what the main differences are between Simple Finance and SAP Financials in an environment with BI activated.
Yeah. So I think in general, the answer is SAP has been progressing and delivering innovations over the last 3 or 4 years. On the ERP side, that meant we have an ERP system, maybe had accelerators on the side where we put some data on a HANA side-by-side implementation and used it for reporting. We've moved on to a suite on HANA, and now we have some architectural changes and optimizations towards HANA and reporting. So that's the ERP stack. At the same time, I think BW evolved, and BW was then available or became available as a BW on HANA, leveraging those capabilities. And then more and more these systems or these capabilities grow together, right? We have an embedded BW, always had it on the ERP side. So if you have a suite on HANA system, thereby your BW, your native embedded BW already is on HANA as well. And the integration between these solutions is also growing together. So if you have a BW system, today you can use composite providers or HANA Live virtual data models to access, from a BW perspective, BW user interface or query perspective, data that sits on the ERP side. So probably the best answer to this is like both worlds have been evolving, have been adopting more and more HANA capabilities, and are growing together more and more. I think the ultimate step, which we don't have today, is they really have HANA. There's one database, one installation that has the ERP data and the plan data and all your BW data in that sense from an ERP perspective. There's some technical components still missing, like workload management or multi-tenancy. Some of them, many of them will come out with the latest HANA release in the fall, I think SP9 or something like this. So we're on the way to bringing this all together, I think. That's the vision, makes most sense, reduces replication, redundancy, makes everything real-time and up-to-date, and we're on the way over there. So depending on what release you look at, you will see a different stage within that maturity path.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Sydney McConnell, and she said that there was a note on one of the slides about how SAP Accounting, powered by SAP HANA, does not provide all of the capability of SAP FICO, and she's wondering what's missing. Do you actually lose some of the FICO capability?
Yeah, so what will change, there's an OSS node, for example, that outlines old transactions, new transactions. So it's not necessarily about losing functionality. I think very, very few things are lost. We do have a cleanup effort going on, though, where we know which transactions are never used, and we will take them away, but they're never used. So it's more about a transition. So we transition from a SAP GUI interface maybe to a WebDynpro, maybe to a Fiori app. Certain things will be added. So you will see certain capabilities only in that SAP accounting powered by HANA because they wouldn't work without HANA. Let's say the new work in process calculations, variance calculations. And there is new capabilities, replacement capabilities. So asset management, for example, is dramatically different from how it's written to be optimized towards HANA. So there we have a replacement, not one-to-one by transaction, but from a capability perspective. That might be eventually non-intrusive. The business users might not see it because the screen stays the same, but under the hood maybe certain transactions were updated or replaced. So in general, it's not about losing anything. It's about basically the continued evolution eventually through adjusted transactions or new transactions that are included.
Great, thank you. We have several questions from Tammy Paulus, and I'm going to ask you to address a few of those now, and then we'll circle back in a few minutes to the rest of them. So first up, what about SAP project systems? Are they included in SAP accounting powered by HANA as well as funds management?
Good question. I do not know the answer off the top of my head. If you go to help.sap.com and you go to the release notes for Simple Finance, I think in there it's called SFIN 1.0, you'll see exactly what's included, what's not included.
Okay. Would your response be the same for FICA?
There was that one I know. There was nothing done for FICA at this point of time. So from a roadmap perspective, they're looking at what can be done there. I don't know an answer towards future planned capabilities.
Great, thank you. And actually, I can get that response from you, and we can include that in our update on the blog as well.
Yeah.
Great. So this one's from Brandy Sanborn. Is there any benefit to implementing the new GL before Simple Finance as opposed to staying on the classic GL and implementing Simple Finance straight away?
Yeah. So customers can adopt Simple Finance no matter if they have classic GL in place or new GL in place. Traditionally, these new GL implementations, and most customers looked at this, were considered long time, high effort, intrusive implementations. And that's typically because customers didn't just activate the basic new GL, but they said, well, do I want to have a parallel ledger or not? Do I go over? What business dimensions do I do? As part of the migration to Simple Finance, so to migrating to SAP Accounting Powered by HANA, let's call it new GL data structures are activated. Right? So when you will still have your base BSEC and all of these additional capabilities available initially. You still have your profit center accounting, your special ledger, all of these things available. But you will also have the data in the new GL tables. That is because some of those Fiori apps and some of those reports are basically based on these new data structures. Now, so you don't lose anything if you're on the classic GL and you go and migrate to SAP Accounting by HANA, but the new GL data tables are basically activated. Now, that's not a implementation project of new GL, right? It's not like this, there's like different scenarios that include document splitting and parallel ledgers and so on. It's the basic stuff. So that can be done as part of the migration. And that can be done at any time. We recommend at month end because if you use asset management, you should have had at least a depreciation run. But you don't have to wait till like a year end like in the old scenario. So you don't have to do it beforehand. You can just do it. If you want to go full-blown, obviously, like all of these scenarios, including document split and so on, it's probably better than to do it beforehand and then go SAP Accounting Powered by HANA.
Okay. So our next couple of questions are from Summit Lewis. First up, can you talk a little bit more about how many customers are using the solution at this point?
Yeah. So Simple Finance was introduced in June at Sapphire. We have had at that point of time 4 customers that are actively working on it, and we're in ramp up, SAP itself. Actually, we have been live since Sapphire with this. Since Sapphire, many more customers have joined the ramp up program. I think we're up to 15, 20, 25, something like this. So ramp up means basically they're actively in the process of looking into the software, implementing it, and going live sometime soon. It is my understanding that we will have general availability as early as August 1st. From then on, we will also see an official go-live announcement. So at this point of time, it's basically customers heard about it a great deal at Sapphire. They find many aspects very, very intriguing, and they're basically in the implementation, consideration, or adoption cycle right now. So 3 months from now, a very different picture. 6 months from now, again, a very different picture. Right now, customers are really looking into the additional gain and how to adopt the solution.
Okay. So is the add-on leading more towards account-based profitability analysis versus costing-based?
At this point of time, it is. Now, I had a very interesting discussion with a colleague the other day, and he said, well, look at it this way. Right now, we post line items into the system, and not even look at logistics, but just finance, right? We post all of this information in here, and if it comes out of SD, it's all revenue information with all the dimensions that we have. If it's about cost, it has all the cost information in there with all the dimensions that we need. Eventually, you could just base your profitability based on this combined FICO data set, really, right? So in that sense, account-based COPA versus costing-based eventually will go away too, because you say, I'll just do it based on the data set that I have. Now, we're far away from this, and I'm not saying it's our roadmap, but that's the logical conclusion, right? Us saying in SAP, I do my analysis based on line item, and I will have a combined FICO document means, well, that's my new database for profitability. Now, so eventually, even the step of defining what your dimensions are should probably go away. We're still far away, but I'm just saying will go away. Then the only question left is, would you have different value? Value fields, or would you just have account? Again, if the postings are already there, why would you transform this into a value-based perspective? So short-term already, costing account-based allows us to do the FICO COPA drill down, as I mentioned earlier, and costing-based does not. So I think mid-term, that's my personal opinion, we're moving away from costing-based to account-based, but long-term, even these kind of distinctions will probably go away. Now, having said that, initially I thought it's maybe a bigger deal, but some friends from Deloitte told me, actually, you can activate account-based in parallel. It's possible, so it doesn't cost you much, and even the data sizes are not that dramatic. Why don't you do it? And if you do it, you figure out where the differences are between account-based and costing-based. And there might not be too many, actually. And they're right, because we can say in which areas there's differences. And then if you look at all the advantages you get, like this overall FICO as a data set, drill down for all basically accounts and all dimensions, the question then becomes, do I really want to keep my costing base? And I think then the upside is very high. So customers today without Simple Finance would have said, there's really little upside for me in changing. And that's fair enough because it's just a management accounting methodology. But going forward, it's really about all the things you can gain by going away from a value-based, costing-based approach to a, base your profitability analysis based on all the financial management information that you have in the system.
Thank you. So I think we have time for a couple of additional questions. These are also posted by Tammy. So ASUG had an AP Fiori webcast. Is that included in Simple Finance as well as accounting powered by HANA?
I haven't seen the webcast, but I would assume it is because it's AP. AP is part of FI. The Fiori apps are all part of our Simple Finance solution. So the answer should be yes.
Okay. And what about ERP embedded BW that came with Enhancement Pack 7? Would that work with the solution as well?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Carsten. I appreciate your time today, and we thank all of our listeners for joining us as well. we invite you to join our next webinar. It will actually be tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern on SAP Rapid Deployment Solutions with Julian Zelvat. And we encourage you to stay tuned on ERP Corp for more great topics. And you can learn more from Karsten and other SAP speakers on SAP Simple Finance topics at the Controlling 2014 conference in September. We hope to see you there. Thank you.